learn about the input, output, and storage of the computer, right? But before that, this is, you can say, a layout of a regular computer, right? Meaning you have the motherboard, which is mainly inside what you call the system unit, right? And then we'll have the storage devices, which is connected to the main board or motherboard, right? We also have other things like the CPU and RAM, which you learned in the previous chapter, right? As well as the expansion card, also something you learned in the previous chapter. Then we have the input devices. The ones we have here is the mouse and keyboard, right? Then the output devices. Some output devices, for example, the printer, is connected straight to the motherboard using a USB port. And then there are other output devices like the monitor, which is connected to an expansion card called the graphics card. And then the speaker, which is connected to another expansion card called the sound card, right? And so we have input, we have output, and we have storage. Of course, you might be familiar with another type of storage called the USB thumb drive, right? Or rather, a category of this is called solid state storage. But first, before we go on to all of these devices, basically we are going to learn or focus on these two things, right? 1 and 2, input devices. Then we'll have a look at these two things, 1 and 2, output devices. Then we'll have a look at all of these things called storage, right? Input, output, and storage of the computer, right? So again, I say these are the things which is inside the system unit. The rest are mainly outside. Oh, of course, this is outside as well. Now, the first thing, or rather the first input, output, or storage device that we'll focus on would be an input device called the keyboard, right? Anyway, we've learned before this that whatever software we have, it will start from the hard disk drive. We'll keep the software here. I'll just write SW for software, okay? And then you want to launch the software or open the software, which you use a mouse. You double click on an icon, the software will go to the RAM. Now here's the software, right? And the software will run. And depending on the software that is currently running, your input might yield a different kind of output, maybe even this, right? So the purpose of input devices is to say something mainly to the RAM. Is to supply some kind of user input or what the user wants to say to the random access memory. And we'll focus on the first input device, which is the keyboard. Regular keyboards nowadays have a layout called the QWERTY layout. QWERTY, right? This is after the first six letters on the keyboard, QWERTY, right? Other than the alphanumeric keys, the keyboard also has special keys, some of which are called toggle. And then we have function keys, right? We have modifier keys and cursor movement keys. Toggle keys is to turn things on and off. For example, the caps lock or the num lock. These are both toggle keys, right? On, off, on, off. Then we have function keys. For example, F1, F2, F3, F4. These are all function keys. They have special functions inside them depending on the type of software which is currently in RAM, which is currently being run and is the modifier keys. These keys are used with other keys for specific functions in specific software. For example, if you're using Microsoft Word, right, and you type A, if you do this, you know that inside your document you will get the letter A. But if you use Shift A, Shift being a modifier key, you will get capital A, right? Whereas if you use Control A, you will get everything inside your document will be selected. That is, select all, Control A. And these are all modifier keys. Shift, Control, alternate. The last one is cursor movement key. Cursor movement is to curse all your movements. No, cursor movement is to move the cursor. What a cursor is, on your screen, you will have this thing looking like an arrow, and this thing will move once you move your mouse. Right? You can actually also program your keyboard, meaning you can tell your operating system and say, I want to use my keyboard to move the cursor, and so you will use a cursor movement key. Underneath the keyboard, we have this thing called the key matrix. Basically, it's a grid of circuits, right? And the grid of circuits correspond with the keys being pushed. Once you press on one key, a certain electrical impulse will be sent, right? And this electrical impulse will correspond with what we call character map. So character map is basically what the operating system knows, right? Or rather what the CPU knows, right? With regards to what kind of input it is. Meaning once you have a certain electrical impulse, right? The CPU will then know what to process depending on the kind of software which resides in the RAM currently.